Welcome to Sunday Morning Quarterback with Jay Stockwell and Bob Frady.
Welcome, everybody, to Season 2 of the Sunday Morning Quarterback Podcast. How are you, Bob Fraley?
I can't believe I'm back here for another year of this punishment. So, here we go.
And we are, another way. It's going to be better this year, Bob. I promise. I swear to God, it's going to be better.
I am trying to figure out how Nebraska can kick their fans in the nuts again this year after suffering through 4 of the worst losses last year. It's like, God, it's like the 7 years since the playoffs. I think a game that we went to, which was the Holiday Bowl, and just sadness last year. 5-3, ended up 5-7.
And it started
Bob
with Bob almost getting a fight at the Minnesota game last year.
Yeah, thanks to that guy over there. So, but we're not here to talk about the past. We're here to talk about the future. Talking about the past is simply pouring water on concrete. We are here to talk about the future.
And we should introduce our new correspondents.
Yes.
Right? So we have 2 guys with rough assignments. We're not going to be too restrictive on them, though. They can kind of do anything they want. But my son, George Stockwell, age 16, junior at Blake, he's going to be kind of focusing on recruiting and just sort of general hot takes. And Drew, who's going to be a junior at UC Santa Barbara. Senior.
Almost done.
At UC. You're our West Coast correspondents. We don't know anything about these West Coast teams, so you got to be on top of Washington, Oregon, USC, and UCLA, and keep the crew going on what's happening out there, because there's some new competition coming into the league.
Yes, sir. You know I will be on top of it.
Well, here's the way each report will run every week. It's like, the weather was really awesome this week. It's pretty much what it is. People in Nebraska are going to be in igloos, and Drew will be like, yeah, I'm in Santa Barbara, man. It's okay. It's okay. This has been the summer of hypology, of all hypology, because 2 words. What are they, George Stockwell?
College football 25. That's
no. It's
like
Dylan Raiola.
Dylan Raiola.
Dylan Raiola was like pixie dust that has been scattered over the state of Nebraska. Everyone is in hype mode. They are so excited that they can't even stand themselves how excited they are right now.
That is my first hot take. Bob Fraley, that's my first hot take. Matt Rule said yesterday, we have 2 future NFL quarterbacks in our quarterback room.
To which I would say, amazing. What kind of coach would say, yeah, we got a couple of bums back there getting the snap.
Yeah, that's not really a hot take.
You know what? I feel really poorly about our quarterback situation. It's like, I mean, he would know whether somebody was qualified for the league since he coached in the league. However, I would also say a good coach pumps up his players, and we all know Matt Rule is good pumping up players.
Let's start with some key hot takes here. I'll go. I've already given you one. I'll go, and then we'll go around the room. What are your initial takes for the season? I already said we're going to have 2 future NFL quarterbacks. What I'm really pumped about is the upgrade in the defensive coaching staff with John Butler coming over from Buffalo. That is, if you see the chess pieces on the board, that is our future defensive coordinator once Tony White decides to go be a head coach. So I think that's a massive upgrade to an already good defense, and I'm just very, very excited about. And I'll go one step further. Terrence Knighton.
All right.
One more.
I've got one hot take, and then everybody do one. Wait, I've got 2.
And related to defense, I love that Terrence Knighton is calling the defensive line Ty Robinson, Nash Hutmacher, and Jamari Butler death row. That's pretty cool. So,
as a West Coaster, death row has a certain connotation to it that I don't think we want to get into right now. The thing I'm most encouraged by is all the seniors coming back who didn't have to come back. There were like 5 or 6 guys who could have jumped, and they stayed, which means that the players seem to be bought in to what Coach Rule is throwing down. And really half the success in athletics is mental, maybe more. And it seems like they are certainly believing what the coaching staff has to say. But like you, I'll add another one. The team looks a lot stronger this year. Looks like they've really hit the weight room hard, which, as you know, Jay Stockwell, being bigger than everybody else is a good thing. So,
especially when it comes to keeping Bob Brady out of fights at games.
Yeah, you were some big help. You're the one who caused it. The guy you got. So Jay, we're at the Minnesota game last year, just like jokey joke, and the guy behind him goes off. And so what do? I have to step in. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. And then Junior Stockwell gets involved and I have to step in again. Luckily, no hands were thrown.
Yeah, the opposition was escorted out of the game, though. So
and then we lost the game.
We won that round.
And then we lost the game. Yeah, we won the battle. We lost the war. So, we didn't lose the game.
First dagger of the heart for the year.
First kick in the cojones. So, all right. George, what's your hot take for today?
I think my hot take is we're going to have a top 25 wide receiver core by the end of the year and a top 5 wide receiver core in the Big Ten. Dylan Raiola is supposed to be a really good quarterback, and we have a couple transfers, Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair, supposed to be really good. And then we have Malachi Coleman and Jalen Lloyd, who are absolute speedsters. They were both top 100 recruits in the country. So I think we're going to have a really solid offense this year. We just need that quarterback area to be we got Dylan Raiola now. He's the piece to the puzzle.
Are we going to have the top interception team again this year, or are we going to...
Well, I was actually watching a video today. Dylan Raiola does not throw that many interceptions, and he's kind of been putting an emphasis on not turning the ball over. So I don't think we're going to have as many interceptions and fumbles as we did last year, because we were bottom of the country last year in turnovers.
Oh, it was awful. Jay, you probably have the statistics somewhere, but it's like...
we were the number one turnover team, number one turnover margin, 5 games
We're
lost by 3 points.
We're number one. Not the number we want to be.
And 15 of the turnovers were by the quarterbacks. So it was just brutal last season. But I think that's largely solved by the fact that it's not Jeff Sims back there, and it is in fact Dylan Raiola.
The sad thing about last year is Jeff Sims seems like a terrific kid, and
he did.
Immediately comes in, boom, 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 out go the lights, and it was just hard to watch as a father. It was really hard to watch that, because your heart breaks for the kid, and these guys are kids, They're Dylan Raiola is what, 19, and he's got the weight of Nebraska on his shoulders. Now maybe he can handle it. But shoot, man, that's a lot of pressure for a kid. And to see that happen was really, really tough last year. So I'm hoping that they get that stuff under control, just for the sake of the kids, if anything else.
By the way, I just have to comment. The Frady uniforms for the first pod are a little, outside of the
outside of brand.
Here.
I thought those
my
was
going to
a
be
dry
a little
run.
outside the brand soon now.
So here we go.
All right, Drew Frady, what do you got cooking for us?
All right, well, covering the West, my take's going to be coming out of Oregon, and I think they're going to be a real good contender coming out of the Big Ten. It's a new conference, but they got Dylan Gabriel. They got unlimited NIL money, according to Phil Knight, and I think they're going to be ready to go.
What about the LA teams?
Looking rough over on defense, but at USC we have Zach Branch, who after last year is a true freshman All-American. I think he's going to have a real good year. Miller Moss actually just got named as their QB1 today, so he's got some big shoes to fill, but we'll see if he can do it. And then over at UCLA, new head coach with Chip Kelly gone, and a lot of defensive starters gone there as well, so offenses are looking pretty good, but defense is looking pretty weak down in Southern California.
Who's the new head coach at UCLA?
We got Deshaun Foster. He was their running backs coach.
He was a great running back in the day, man. He was a stud. Back when running backs were, the thing back in the day, he was an incredible player for UCLA. So he's coming home. See
Those
how it
boys
works
better
out.
be ready for some cold Midwest football, though.
Man,
It's gonna be brutal.
It's like I agree, Drew. I think UCLA is going to throw the ball all over the yard this year, and to the point where Moss might be in line for Heisman votes because that system just produces so many yards. But gosh, there's no D in Southern California. Spell it all out. University of Southern California. There's no D in there at all.
Yeah, Miller Moss won the MVP of the Holiday Bowl last year with 6 touchdowns. So he's a really good quarterback. He could be
He's gonna
good.
be
He
a
stepped
real
up.
total.
He stepped up. He's like, well, this guy can't play. Here's 6 touchdowns for you, Sunshine. So
Seeing
good
him
for that.
get that rock to Zach Branch is going to be exciting.
Zach Branch is one of the best wide receivers in the country.
Yeah, he's a stud.
But then again, they have to go through the mighty big red of Nebraska this year.
Very
The
true.
polar bear. The polar bear. If that offensive line doesn't protect, then they're going to have a tough time. All right. So
I think those are some pretty good first reports from the young lads here. Let's go another round though.
you
on
know
the hot
what?
takes.
You know why? Because they actually study for this. We just sort of show up and we're like, I think that this is great. And then
I woke up from a
you know,
nap 30 minutes ago and looked on
Did the work.
Safari real quick. I'm in the same boat as you guys too.
Don't give away your secrets there, George. We don't need to know you use ChatGPT to prepare for this.
Okay, I didn't do that. I didn't do all.
All right, let's talk about running backs. We have a very, very deep running back room. If you look at the depth chart, we're looking at Johnson, Irvin, Dowdell, and then Ramir Johnson, Emmett Johnson, Gabe Irvin, Dowdell. I mean, that looks very, very strong.
Okay, so here's what a homer Jay Stockwell is. He wants Emmett Johnson to be RB1 because Emmett Johnson took his friend's daughter to prom. That's well, I know he's a good kid. I hear good things about him. So, keeping it close.
He actually does. I mean, if you look at him up close, he is an absolute stud. So, yeah, it's Emmett Johnson, Gabe Irvin Jr., Dante Dowdell, Ramir Johnson, and then Quentin Ives. I don't know much about Quentin Ives. Do you guys?
He's been there for a few years. I mean, he gets maybe a snap or 2 every game. He won't play in big games, but I mean, he's there. He's not terrible.
He's a
Hey, listen.
redshirt freshman too, so he's young.
Any of those kids could start for Edina High School, I think. But not for Hardington High School. I don't think they can start for Hardington because
Exactly.
they'd have to be offensive linemen, and they'd probably be the entire offensive line in our.
Oh, by the way, I should mention the 4 of us are going to be going to the USC game in Los Angeles on November 16th. So
Well,
write that down, boys,
There you
on
go,
your calendar.
dude. I'll
It's
write it
March.
down on my calendar. It'll be right there. It'll be awesome. Okay, listen. You can't. Last time we went to Nebraska and USC at the Coliseum, Jay decided to rent a limousine and paste Nebraska stickers all over it, and then almost got me in a fight in the stands.
This is a
And
theme now. There's a theme.
I was
Bob goes to
minding
game. Bob gets in fight.
I was minding my own. And the theme's always the same. I was minding my own business, and some stuff started to happen. And it was your nephew last time who took umbrage with the fans from USC, and luckily cooler had prevailed.
Umbrage comes a little earlier with 12 beers in you. So let's be clear about that.
And then you remember you punched me on the way home. You punched me right in the chest, and I was like, I thought my heart was going to collapse. So, because he was so upset that Nebraska lost, he punched me. I'm like, I'm just standing there. Okay. Anyway, that was a long time ago. So let's hit the schedule. Give our prognostications.
I think generally it's a tale of 2 seasons. We got the front half of the schedule, which looks pretty darn easy, and then the back half, which looks very hard. So let's go through one by one, and we'll just kind of keep a tally. So home game, August 31st. That's coming up in a week from Friday. UTEP. That's a win.
University of Texas El Paso, very close to the Mexican border. In fact, you could see Mexico from UTEP.
I got a buddy down there playing linebacker, so
yeah?
He's gonna need him.
Yeah, it will be the litmus test for the season. If this is a close game or something bad happens, then it's going to be a long season. However, I remain very optimistic that they will win this game by the score of 97-14.
We're not going to score predictions.
Okay, we're not going to score. Okay. All right, so UTEP.
We'll chalk it up.
Anybody disagree that UTEP's going to be who's your guy at linebacker?
Jake Hall, middle linebacker.
Oh, Jake. Okay, very nice.
He
All right.
was winning that CIF championship, so
Very nice.
A special place in my heart. Hope he doesn't get trucked or anything.
Yeah, so Jake was a high school teammate of Drew at San Juan Hills High School. Patrick O'Brien, Nebraska quarterback, San Juan Hills High School.
Whatever happened to him?
He went to a few different colleges, and
State,
he had a couple of tryouts.
Washington.
And I don't know what he's doing now. He hasn't called me recently, so I really...
All right. Well, the next week, Bob, you're going to miss it, but my family, George and I and Betsy and Marion, are going to be down there for the Colorado game. And I think we put Coach Prime in his place, and I will say we're going to win that one 35-17. What do you guys think?
Gosh, this is such a tough game. We thought that last year too, and we had to eat a little humble pie after that game. So I don't understand what's going on with Coach Dion, because his last presser was kind of angry. And what are you so mad about? I mean, you've got a good team, you got good players, you got a good situation. What are you so mad about? Don't be so mad. So don't bring that energy, which means maybe he doesn't think that he has the team that he really has. So I'm going to say Nebraska 4-3 in extra innings will beat Colorado.
I'm going to have to disagree with all you guys. I think Nebraska's going to lose this one, unfortunately. I mean, we have the same defense as we did last year, and we let up 35 points, but I think the reason we let up 35 points is because we had so many turnovers. So I think it depends on our turnover margin. And I mean, I think we're going to lose the turnover margin and lose this game, unfortunately.
I think Nebraska's going to edge them out, but, you can never count out Travis Hunter. He's a stud.
Yeah, both sides. That's hard.
No joke.
It's like back in the day, when Jay and I were young, you could play both ways because people didn't work out as much. I mean, we had one universal machine in the entire high school. And now all people do is work out. It's like rolling balls of mass destruction. It's like just try knocking into those all day.
I mean, playing both ways in high school is one thing. Playing both ways Division I NCAAs, that's a whole new ball game.
Yeah, playing both ways in high school is hard. Never mind D1. But he did get injured last year.
True.
And you got to wonder, are they going to restrict him to one side or the other, or just keep him going until he gets injured again? So that's the question that we'll see. But so we're 3-1 Nebraska over, and you're going to be there.
Of course, I want them to win, but I mean, Shador's a really good quarterback with an upgraded offensive line. I mean, they have the most transfers coming in the country out of any team, so they could be really good. They're kind of we don't really know how good they're going to be. They could be really good, or they could go 4-8 like they did last year.
All right, who's next?
All right, Northern Iowa. That's got to be a unanimous win across the board, right?
Northern Iowa. Are they playing at the Unidome, or are they? Oh no, this one's in Lincoln. And this is the thing about Iowa that confuses me, because they're Cedar this, Cedar that, and Cedar everything else. And so I can't remember if University of Northern Iowa is in Cedar Falls or Cedar Rapids or Cedar Dome. I know they play at the Unidome, but I don't know what city they play in, because I don't know what the cities in Iowa are, because there's too many Cedars, there's too many Falls, and there's too many Rapids in Iowa. It's like they had 6 words they could use for city names, and Falls, Rapids, and Cedar were 3 of them.
So let's just stop and pause and bang on Iowa. Talk about how bad their corn is. Yeah,
let's not
awesome.
bang. Let's bang on Iowa. You know what? You know what Iowa's good for? Getting to Nebraska. That's what it's good for.
All right, Illinois. I think that's a win straight across the board. Anybody disagree?
I think it's pronounced Illinois because they're trying to upgrade their intellectual capabilities. So I think that the Illinois shall go down to defeat to the mighty Big Red.
Anybody disagree? All right, then we go on the road to Purdue, Nana University there, George.
The Nana Bowl. The Nana Bowl.
The Nana Bowl. And I think that's a win straight across the board. This is what I'm talking about, guys. The front half of the season is kind of a cakewalk here.
Well,
yeah, I mean,
you
you can't just walk into Purdue though. They've been known to be the spoiler makers. They beat some really big teams in there, but I don't think their roster is going to hold up to Nebraska this year. I think we get the.
All right.
Good point. How about Rutgers? Rutgers
Rutgers is
going to be good this year.
Rutgers is sneaky
Go the
good.
other way.
Shiano's a good coach. He's been recruiting like crazy. It's the State University of New Jersey, but it's exit 16A on the Turnpike, I think. And it's like he's a good coach, man. Is it at Nebraska or is it at?
Yeah.
It's at
Nebraska.
Nebraska.
Yeah.
I'll give the home court edge.
I'm going to have to agree with you, Uncle Bob, but they are an upcoming team. They're top 20 in recruiting for 2025, which is next year. Upcoming freshman next year. And they were top 30 in recruiting this year. So they could be a really good team in the future. And they showed to be solid last year as well. So,
yep. So I think, Jay, you're living on undefeated time right now, aren't you? You at 6-0 right now?
Yeah, we're 6-0, and the only loss on the board is Georgia, Colorado. So,
Okay.
all right. So then we go to Indiana. That's the last cupcake. So that's a win.
No, there's not the last cupcake. 7-0. That just sounds really odd to say.
that does not sound.
Yeah,
that does
that
not,
was-
Optimistic.
Yeah, it's not that we shouldn't be optimistic, but
Yeah, there's definitely a couple games that we could lose. I mean, I think that Colorado and Rutgers are big toss-ups. I have Rutgers winning, them losing to Colorado, but still, I mean, we could lose either of those games. And I mean, Purdue and Indiana, they're not the greatest teams, but you still don't want to walk in there and not really care. So
weren't the greatest teams last year either.
It's a great
So,
bowl.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
All right. Then it gets tough. Then we go to Ohio State, and I think that
That's a
I
loss.
think that one
That's a
is-
loss. I think
That's a loss.
Yeah, we're all in agreement on that.
Ohio
Uh-oh.
State always has a gack up game on their schedule.
Oh
It's
my
just-
goodness.
They just like they gack it up.
Are you gonna say 8-0, Bob?
Is it the
you're at
horseshoe?
7-0.
No, it's at the horseshoe.
You just
so
said
no,
said 7-0 was crazy.
I know. Hey, listen.
I think 8-0 is even a little more crazy.
Crazy is my middle name. Crazy is my middle name. Why not? Listen, why not be optimistic? It's the time to be optimistic. This is assuming nobody gets injured. And that's a big assumption.
We've already had a few injuries. I mean, Teddy Prohaska.
It's a binary choice. You can't put conditions on it. Like,
I can
is
put-
it
I
a
can
win
do
or a
any-
loss?
I can do anything I
Bro,
want to.
He can do what he wants. I agree with Uncle Bob.
Exactly. So that's the good Stockwell talking right there. So, yeah, I'm good. You know what? Yeah, screw you. 8-0.
Okay.
All right.
No. Wow. This is Bob. Bob is really drinking the Kool-Aid here. All right. Then UCLA comes to town the next week. So I'm going to go. That's a win for me. That they're just going to be intimidated. Away game, big crowd, big time quarterbacks.
Gonna have to agree.
I think that's a win.
Here, Mr. Stockwell.
I don't think they'll be
Yep.
intimidated at all. I do think they'll be cold as hell. And dude, it's cold. And the wind is like so windy, man. What's up with that? And they'll have like a good quarter's worth of effort, and then
This
Yeah,
is
with-
not
they're out.
Pac-12 competition. I'll tell you
No.
that much.
This is not the Pac-12 weather. And what happens when these Southern California teams go to places like Oregon and Oregon State and Washington State, and even Washington, which have horrible freaking weather, they lose because the weather's terrible. Like you go to ASU, it's like, yeah, man, it's nice. It's 95 degrees outside. Go to Washington, and it's like there's cats and dogs falling from the sky, and it's slick everywhere, and it's cold, but not so cold that you wear the appropriate clothing. So, that's I think that those California teams, no chance.
So Bob, it's now November 16th, and you're 9-0.
And the team is in the top 5.
Okay, boy, talk about drinking the Kool-Aid. All right, then we go out. Then we just announced that we're going out to the game on November 16th, week before Thanksgiving, and we play USC. I think that's a loss.
I'm with you.
I don't know.
I don't know about that either. I mean, USC does have a really good offense, but their defense is kind of trash. I'm going to be honest. And if Dylan Raiola and the wide receiver room live up to the hype, I mean, we could definitely hang with them, but Miller Moss could also put up 6 touchdowns. So I think that's 50-50, but I'm going to go with a win versus USC.
I think it's going to be a shootout. Oh,
I think the polar bear dominates. But the big problem that you have is all these Nebraska boys get off the bus and they're like, dude, it's nice out here. Wow. Holy cow, it's a palm tree. So, there's that.
So now you're going to take it to 10-0, Bob?
Yes, of course I am.
Okay, all right.
We're going there. We're going there.
And we're now number 3 in the country, having just beat USC on the road.
Oh, I think we're number 2 at this point.
All right. Then it's the.
I've seen this because my other son played Nebraska. Actually, he was playing as Vanderbilt in college football 2025, and he went to the Natty, and Nebraska was the other team. So I'm just going what I see off of college football 2025.
I actually just won the Natty with Nebraska, so hopefully that'll be in the future. But USC was like an okay, not great team with one of the best quarterbacks in recent history, Caleb Williams. And they played the Pac-12 and 8-4, 9-8-4, 8-5. They were not great. They come to the Big Ten and face some really big teams. I don't think they're going to be as good. So that's another reason why I choose the win over USC.
They need to get that defense figured out.
Exactly.
Here's the other thing that I think they're going to be
terrible last
at that
year.
point in the season. They're going to be tired. You're talking about going from California to the Midwest to the East Coast. The travel and the physical wear and tear and the stress of school, I think, will be a much bigger factor for the West Coast teams than is being talked about right now. It's like when Alabama wins all those championships, they'd take bus rides to their opponents. They don't go anywhere. Alabama hasn't played in the Western time zone since like 98 or something like that.
Alabama players also don't really have to focus on school too much.
Well, hey, listen, let's not talk about... We're talking about Nebraska here, where the N stands for knowledge. So, we got to cut them a little slack.
After we beat SC, according to Bob Frady, on the 23rd, we come home to Wisconsin. And I'm just not hearing much about Wisconsin. Anybody hearing anything about these guys?
Oh, yeah, Luke Fickell, he's no joke. He's a good coach. There's a lot of good coaches in the Big Ten. So he's recruiting well. He's putting the pieces together. They won last year. I think that Nebraska gets their revenge this year.
Yeah, actually a former Blake football player, SMB Wolfpack, its combined team. A couple players, Jalen Suggs played there. He was a 4-star recruit, but they're going to have a 7-foot lineman that's going to start there this year at Wisconsin that went to my school. So, I mean, I think they're going to be a decent team. They got the new Miami quarterback, Van Dyke. And I mean, he could be pretty good. So we'll see. We'll see how Wisconsin is. I think we're going to lose that one.
Can that lineman hoop? Can he pass?
7 feet tall or 7 feet wide?
I think we got Jokic over at Wisconsin.
Exactly.
He was a bench rider at Minnehaha High. He didn't touch the court. So he's
all right. So Bob, I got a win out of you. I'm calling it a win. Drew, you're calling it a loss.
I'm calling it a loss.
Oh man. Okay.
calling it a loss.
All right.
George is calling it a
And
loss.
then we finished the season at Iowa.
Is that a Friday Night Lights game? November 29th, I think
yeah.
it is.
Is that the Friday of Thanksgiving?
I believe it is. The state of Nebraska will be out of their minds. They will be out of their minds. They will erect statues of Matt Rule and Dylan Raiola, and they will get Pat Mahomes to come in and do a Dylan Raiola impression. Driving their combines straight into Iowa, not taking any. They'll farm the fields along the way if they have to. And
all right,
then
so you're
then,
calling it a win. You're calling it a win.
Oh,
Nope.
Oh.
Oh,
I told you this is the kick in the nuts. This is the natty, the undefeated season whoosh, to Iowa. This is how they completely break the hearts of Nebraska fans. And they'll lose on like a fumble 2-point conversion, and Iowa will take it around the other way and score. It'll be like it'll be like the end of Titanic, and they're just like Jack, and their heart will go on, and So I think they'll lose that game in the most painful fashion possible.
I think it's a win, so Bob, I have you at 11-1. Okay, I'm calling it a win. I'll be at 10-2. Drew, what are you thinking?
I got to win.
All right, so Drew's at 9-3, and George, what's your take on Iowa?
Your win. I have no faith in Iowa, and Iowa's the worst sports program of all time. They're gonna suck. I mean, their quarterback Cade McNamara, they just had a spring game. He went 7 for 21 with 8 yards of completed passes, 1 turnover, and for a pick six, or 2 turnovers, 1 pick six, and 1 forced fumble. So I think we're gonna.
They had 5 games like that last year.
Yeah.
But their defense scores 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, but they also have one of the easiest. They this year they have a top 10 easy schedule in the country, like they do every year. They just go through the Big Ten West like it's nothing. I mean, Nebraska has kind of sucked the last few years, so we haven't been able to beat them, and they play similar to us like Maryland, Illinois. I mean, they just have really easy schedules. They get bailed out.
I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. You said he threw for 8 yards.
He threw for 7 yards or 8 yards. Yes, in the spring game. I'm not joking. Not in the spring game. In like a scrimmage where fans could attend after the spring game. It was terrible.
More passing yards to the defense than his offense. That's impressive.
Yeah. They are gonna suck.
So the Husker Max principal schedule, guys, has all the positions for the playoff on it as well. So that's projecting some confidence all the way down to the national championship. There's some optimism going on here. I mean, we got the national championship on the schedule. We got Bob Brady at 11-1, Commanders at 10-2, boys are at 9-3. I'd take 9-3 tomorrow if you gave it to me.
Here's the thing.
I would commit a felony to go 9-3.
It's like
I would do a lot to go 9.
Yeah, but you won't have a getaway car. So
or license to drive it anyway.
Right. Real funny.
So here's the thing. As parents, you know that your children are not perfect. Surprisingly,
Here we go.
Don't tell other people that. You're like, my kid's awesome. You're like, like his feet stink or something like that. But you don't tell other people that. So we're in the preseason. We're parents in the preseason. Our kid's awesome and beautiful. 11-1.
All right.
If they finish 8-4, I'm not going to be disappointed. That said, it's ridiculous optimism time. We are not going to be judged at the end of the season on how correct we got it, except in our own minds. And we get no prize if they finish first or last, except bragging rights. And, whatever that's worth. So let's be optimistic.
You said 11-1 with a loss to Iowa. Do you think if we end the season with a loss to Iowa, do you think that we're still going to make the 12-team playoff? Yeah, I agree with you. Because you were saying earlier, you said we might not make the playoff, but I think we definitely...
Oh, no. There's a chance we might not make the playoff. There's a really good chance we might not make it.
Oh,
but
yeah.
We're being optimistic. It's preseason. It's like New Year's Day. It's like, hey, I'm going to lose 20 pounds this year. I'm going to exercise every day. It's like New Year's Day. So be optimistic. Be as optimistic as you want. That's what it's there for. Because remember, it's college football. Like if your college football team loses all of their games and you go to the gym, you're still going to get stronger. So it doesn't matter what the college football team does, is what I'm telling you. Although some of our fans I've met, it really matters what the college football team does. But, get a hobby. Take up woodworking or whittling or something like that.
All right, SMQ fans, we are here, as promised, with a very special guest for our preseason pod, Tyler Kai, the Associate Athletic Director for Revenue. Do I have that right?
Technical title is now Deputy Athletics Director, Revenue Generation, but let's also
Okay.
That's a bigger deal, isn't it?
I received a decent promotion effective
Congratulations.
July. Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations.
Now, Tyler, just explain the role. What's the guy who's in charge of revenue? What are your formal responsibilities entail?
The three core areas that I'm responsible for right now is really all fundraising, all ticketing, and then serve as a pretty strong collaboration with 1890 Nebraska, our NIL partner. So really, it's all fundraising, ticketing, and NIL right now.
So it seems like NIL has fundamentally altered the landscape of college recruiting, where kids come in with an empty bag. It's like trick or treat, saying, how much can you put in this bag? How much of that is actually true, and how much of that is, hey, this is the program that we're running, and if you perform, then you'll get rewarded? What structure does that NIL tend to take?
Yes, I don't know the details of each individual contract, but what I would tell you is the way that we view NIL at Nebraska is really the mechanism that we recruit and retain student athletes. So I'm sure, Bob, there are some kids that are coming in with an expectation of you have to hit this certain number for me to be able to be, or for me to be interested in coming to Nebraska. Our opinion is we certainly want to have a pretty well-funded NIL fund to offer student athletes to, again, recruit and retain them. But at the same time, we're looking for a lot more than that. We want kids that want to be at Nebraska. We want to make sure that we have the right mix of kids within the roster. So I'm confident that if a kid came in and said, it's either $100,000 or I walk, we may say, well, if you know what you're worth, that might be something that you pursue somewhere else. We want a kid that wants to make sure that they're at Nebraska.
Because Jay still has some eligibility left, and he's, he's
That sounds good.
in case the offensive line brings a few leaks this year. He could, I could get him for 75.
And Bob and I played golf with our friend Randall McDaniel, who's an all-pro, and I think we could get him to come as well. So
He's out of eligibility, though. He just might be there for pep talks. Jay is still eligible.
Responsible for any of the official recruiting functions, but maybe we can get you guys here for an unofficial visit.
There you go. We'll tour the facilities, and hey, we have plaques there with our names on them. It's like, you should take the recruits by our plaques and say, hey, that's what a fan looks like right there.
Now, Tyler, on the topic of NIL, since Bob departed completely from the script, we're moving to just directly paying players. What does that transition look like? And presumably Nebraska's in a great spot for that, yeah?
A lot of unanswered questions, really more questions than our answers at this point, just as what is commonly referred to as the house settlement. So we're getting a lot more clarity on what the house settlement looks like. But yeah, Jay, you're right. The expectation is there will be a direct rev share component moving into the future. So really starting in 2025, we will directly share revenue with student athletes. That number is around $20 to $22 million annually. There's multiple components of the house settlement, but really where we need to probably focus, or where I need to focus this answer is, yes, we would be distributing funds directly from the athletics department to the student athletes. To be determined on what that exactly looks like, how that will all be structured. But I do think Nebraska is well positioned for the future for a variety of reasons. We've been fiscally responsible for a long time. We have managed our money in a way that I think not other programs in the country have done, and that's really in the form of debt. So we have not taken on bad debt. In fact, all of our projects really up until the Osborne Legacy Complex came on board, we had zero athletics debt. Every one of our projects from a facility perspective was 100% donor funded. We did take on some debt this year, during that project. However, we have repaid that debt. So we, again, are operating completely without any negative debt services in our budget. That is a strong position. The other piece that I would say is we have over 17,000 annual donors in the Huskers Athletic Fund every year. The revenue that we bring in from our donor support, season ticket holders, also is very strong. Really probably top, I think we're top 4 in attendance across all Division I programs this year. So that resource of our fans is really, really good. And then maybe the last piece would be obviously our multimedia rights within our TV and our corporate partnerships keep us pretty healthy as well. We don't know exactly what the future of college athletics will be, but we know that the programs that can pivot quickly are the ones that are going to be most successful. So as more comes out about the House settlement, how you can actually operationalize all of that, we want to make sure that we have not only the resources, but the right people in place that we can just go and move forward, because that's a way for us to gain some ground on some of our peers around the country that may not have as well of a financial position or may not have as aggressive and strategic leadership like we have.
And when does that transition happen? Do you know, or is it still be determined?
Yeah, so many of the details of the House settlement are still coming out, but really starting next fall, this House settlement, like the rev share will begin in 2025. So it's coming quickly. We spent a lot of time thinking about this and talking about this as a leadership team.
Got it. Now, the first question on the script that Bob
Back to
skipped
you,
over
Jay Stockwell.
was at the time of the Trev transition. You probably can't talk too much about that. I immediately, when I heard that Troy had been at Tulane, I immediately thought of you. You were the first guy I texted. But every single person in my Nebraska world that I've talked to about Troy since he's joined, it seems like we may have kind of landed an upgrade here. I don't know if you want to go that far, but boy, oh boy, I don't think I've ever heard such unanimity in terms of the way people are describing an individual like Troy.
Well, Jay, you hit it on the head. I'm obviously biased. Troy recruited me from the University of Tennessee to Tulane. I worked for Troy for 4.5 years down at Tulane. He was very good to me. Down there, we did a lot of work together on a fundraising perspective. He gave me a lot of autonomy. So I left him 3 years ago to come to Nebraska, and things have really come full circle. Obviously, I would have never guessed in a million years that we would have worked together, especially at Nebraska. So it was quite the full circle moment for me. But I think the way that I would evaluate Troy's leadership is he has a unique position and perspective, because talking about this House settlement, he was on what we call the Constitutional Committee for the NCAA. He was a seat in the table as we were talking about what the future of college athletics looks like. So he was in the room as we were trying to work through all of that from a national perspective. I think Troy's got a great pulse on what's going on in the Big Ten office. Another thing, too, that I think Troy has even mentioned fairly publicly is that we do have really good alignment from Big Ten office down. We are well positioned in our league, and I think he is well respected in our league and is able to bring a lot of unique perspectives to that table, into that room as well. So the other thing, too, I just from a day-to-day perspective that I appreciate about Troy is he views himself as a leader that is a snowplow. So he just wants to push things out of the way so the people that work for him have more autonomy and the ability to be able to do what they need to do and do it well. So I saw that firsthand at Tulane, and I'm already seeing it here in Nebraska. So that's a consistent characteristic or attribute that he has as a leader. So, yeah, I think he's going to do a lot of really good things for Nebraska. We're in a pretty volatile time in college athletics as the landscape continues to change.
Hey, listen, it's a pretty low bar here at Nebraska, so as long as he doesn't get drunk and get kicked off the Lincoln Country Club, then he should be A-OK in our book. Not that anybody else did that, allegedly.
Boy, no comment, no comment. All right, Bob, this is where you ask about the brand new facilities and how awesome they are. Go ahead.
So Tyler, I've been thinking a lot about the new facilities at Nebraska, because frankly, the place has been under construction forever and a day. Why don't you give us a little insight as to why you did it and how it's helped with things like recruiting?
I'll start from really back in 2006 when these football performance facilities or development facilities were coming about. Nebraska was one of the first in the country to establish a performance facility that was really focused in on helping, develop the team. So strength and conditioning, locker room space, sports medicine, everything, centralizing that into one facility. We were one of the first in 2006. Since then, everybody has built one, and everybody sort of bag, borrows, and steals from each other. So as it's evolved, the facilities have gotten bigger, the technology has gotten better, the efficiency of them has obviously improved significantly. So we were one of the first, and I think the way that we view it is that since then, since 2006, a lot has changed. The way that we develop has changed. The technology has changed. We're sort of bookending that now. So as NIL came about, this facility already had broken ground. I'm pretty confident that no one will have the interest or maybe even the financial appetite to be able to take on a performance facility of this magnitude simply because of what we talked about with the rev share and the house settlement. I mean, that's a significant hit, especially if your athletic department's already operating some debt. So things in this facility were really focused in on trying to make Nebraska the preeminent development facility or development program in the country. We have put a significant amount of emphasis on recovery. There are things that I don't fully understand in the recovery center that we have, but it's focusing on how we can get our student athletes healthy as quickly as possible, recovering as quickly as possible. Our strength and conditioning center has grown in size. That's not for us to just say, hey, we've got the biggest weight room in the country. I think it's based off of efficiency. We want to make sure we can get our student athletes in as quickly as we possibly can so they're not having to stagger workouts. In addition to that, the footprint itself in the weight room is adjacent to our outdoor practice fields as well as our indoor practice center, the Hawk Championship Center. So if we need to do some strength and conditioning work, we can open up some garage doors that can go right outside and do some sprint work or some stretching, dynamic warm-ups, same with the indoor facility. So a lot of it, Bob, was designed to be really, really efficient. There's also things in there that are intended for the guys to spend time together. There's also things in there that are intended for it to be a recruiting tool. So I'm very impressed. I've been through the facility quite a bit in the last several weeks. We will dedicate the building on August 30th, so the night before the UTEP game. So that will really bookend it. That will end the Go Big campaign and dedicate the Osborne Legacy Complex. So we're excited to get through that. We're excited for more people to be able to get exposed to it. There is a Hall of Champions, as we're calling it, at the entry of the facility. That will be open for fans to come and visit. Not on game days, unfortunately, because it will be a part of what we use for recruiting on game days. But Monday through Friday and Sundays, fans can come and see a lot of our history. If you spend any time at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, Georgia, there's some interactive boards that you can use or go up to and key up information. We have some of that similar technology in the Hall of Champions as well. So it should be really interactive and really fun for fans to be able to come and see our history. So yeah, we're pleased with how it went. It's a 315,000 square foot building, so it did take a long time for us to get everything done.
That's like 3 Walmarts.
It's unbelievable. Well, so I'm in a new office space. So the Huskers Athletic Fund team moved we're actually in Memorial Stadium now. And the reason why we are able to move into the space that we're in is because the academic center has now moved into the new facility. So we built and opened a 315,000 square foot building, and we vacated 100,000 square feet. We tripled in size. So if that just gives you context of how much larger this facility is from what we had before, it's pretty outstanding.
How big must your office be right now?
You've got like a sand volleyball court in your office?
Like a couch and a shooting range in there? Deputy Tyler here. It's going to the shooting range.
Okay, corral doors to walk into my office.
Hey, are we going, in related but separate question, are we going to grass field this year or is that next year?
Oh, it will not be this year. We'll still have the artificial turf. We're doing some feasibility studies on all of that right now. I don't know if I have a timeline of when that will happen, but we are exploring the opportunity to go to grass.
So I got one question for you, and it comes via Dr. Tom Osborne. In the new facility, is there a wind tunnel? Because he says that most teams who come into Nebraska have trouble because of the wind. As you know, it gets a little windy there in Nebraska. So you figure, you might want to put it on your list of things to add to the cool center, a little wind tunnel, so in the off season you can practice throwing in the wind.
Yeah, infrared saunas, a hydraulically lifted bio rim, state-of-the-art walkthrough room, but no wind tunnel.
That doesn't help me throw it in the wind. You got to throw it in the wind.
must have gotten value engineered out of the project, Bob. So
I listen. Sometimes you're a little further ahead of the curve than most people can anticipate, and I'm okay with that.
All right. Now, another topic here for you. So conference realignment. I'm a huge fan of Colin Cowherd. Watch the Herd every chance I get. And he mentioned the other day that preseason ticket sales, in part because of the conference realignment, are up 42% this year. So presumably that means that the public likes this and they like the super conferences that are emerging. What's your perspective on that?
I think what we see across the country, Nebraska may be a little unique in this, but I think at the same time, if you look at any secondary market for ticket sales, people want to go to the big games, right? So if you pull up SeatGeek right now and you try to look at how much a get-in value would be for the UTEP game, it's going to be dramatically different than the Colorado game. More people want to come to Colorado than they do for UTEP. So I think as this does emerge and we see some realignment, call it consolidation, call it whatever you want to call it, but those bigger matchups I think are going to drive more eyeballs on TV as well as more interest in the venue. So we're excited as well. I think adding those West Coast teams to the Big Ten really does centralize us. So now we're really in the center of the Big Ten. So geographically, we like the move. We like that there's been some big brands that have been added, UCLA, USC, Oregon, Washington. Those are great brands that are coming into the Big Ten. So, yeah, I think for where we sit, it is a significant advantage.
So do you guys have a charter plane or you have to fly commercial out of Lincoln?
So it depends on the team, but specifically football, we charter everywhere we go. So we do have a large charter plane that we would fly, to Minneapolis, to UCLA, to wherever we're going.
Does it take dogs? Because I could use a ride out to Southern California for the USC game. Bring the pups. I'll make a donation.
There's a donation level that'll get you that, I'm sure, Tyler.
And depending on what the size of the check is, Bob, we could get you on the equipment truck if you want to ride the equipment truck.
Oh, there you go. Get me at the Zamboni at the hockey game.
Montana State beat the New Mexico State yesterday in a comeback win and flew home commercial
for New Mexico.
That was a fun game to watch. I also watched the Georgia Tech game, and because we had gone to Dublin a couple of years ago for the Nebraska Northwestern game. That was fun to watch too. So football is back, man. Football is back.
Listen, personally, I think that this whole mega conference thing is a bit of a disaster because the travel, it's very stressful to travel. Like Alabama hasn't played a regular season game in the Western time zone since the 90s. And there's a reason for that. When you could take a bus to your opponent, it's a lot less stressful on your body. So how's the university adapting from both a school scheduling standpoint and from a sheer magnitude of the travel standpoint for the kids?
Yeah, well, Bob, this is why I said I think that our position geographically is a huge advantage for Nebraska. The fact that we're not a Rutgers or a Maryland that's going to have to travel all the way over to the West Coast, or even one of the West Coast teams having to travel to Happy Valley to play Penn State, we can go both ways. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, but I think it's easier than a lot of our peers in the Big Ten. And then I think this is the other bit that I talked a little bit about too on the Osborne Legacy Complex. So our focus on recovery has improved dramatically. We want to make sure that whether it's just practice, travel after a game, in between competitions, bye weeks, whatever it is, that sleep has become really important. So there's a lot of studies out there about sleep and what sleep can do for keeping your body strong and healthy and maintaining weight across the football season. Infrared saunas, cold tubs, cold plunges, hot tubs, etc. And then in addition to that, there's these deprivation chambers. And this is where I don't know enough about the technology. So, and it's going to make me seem like I'm really silly when I'm trying to explain this, but it's basically a float pod. But the purpose of these deprivation chambers is to actually stimulate recovery as quickly as you can. There's been a lot of studies on this too. So if you sit in one of these or lay in one of these float pods, it actually stimulates your muscles to recover fast. So I think for us, we anticipate the wear and tear across the season in addition to travel and tried to build that into the facility because we knew it was going to be an edge and an advantage for us.
I don't know if you've seen the latest study, but it turns out that wind tunnels help with recovery as well.
We'll continue to do some research and development.
All right, Tyler, we're going to bring this home again for the people that don't know you. You have real Nebraska street cred, right? But your career's taken you around the country. So just walk everybody through that and tell us about your family and what you love most about working at Nebraska.
Grew up a Husker fan, so I was born in Nebraska. I was born in Pender, Nebraska. Moved away when I was a young kid. Grew up really in Des Moines, Iowa. So Urbandale, Iowa is what I claim is my hometown. But all the while, I still was a pretty strong Husker fan when I was a kid. So I remember watching the teams in the 90s. I remember the 2001 national championship game. I even commented this to somebody a couple days ago because they asked me a similar question. And the football that I played with in my backyard was a 1994 Pizza Hut national championship football. So it's always been a part of my my being and who I am, watching and cheering for the Huskers. I did go to Iowa State undergraduate, so I attended Iowa State. And then I started working in college athletics while I was at Iowa State as an intern. And that's really where it kicked off my professional career, going all over the country. So from Ames,
did you overlap with Fred?
Yeah, so Fred was at Iowa State, and a couple guys on his staff. Nate Linzer was another one on his staff at Iowa State, so I knew them pretty well, followed them a lot while they were at Iowa State too. So, yeah, there's some shared experience there. Well, and here's the other thing too. So Troy grew up in Marshalltown, Iowa. Marshalltown, Iowa from Des Moines is 30 minutes. So he grew up obviously pretty close to where I grew up too. So we have some shared experience there. And that's honestly how Troy and I even got connected, because when I was at Iowa State, Jamie Pollard, who's the AD at Iowa State, is a mentor of mine. I consider him to be a mentor. He got me my start. He and Troy are good friends. So when I went to Kansas State, Jamie helped get me introduced to some folks at Kansas State. That's where I went and got my master's and was a grad assistant. The athletics director at Kansas State at the time was John Curry. Prior to John being at Kansas State, he was at Tennessee. So you can sort of guess where I went from Kansas State. I went to Tennessee. So John introduced me to some folks there. And then my phone rang, and I ended up down in New Orleans because Troy's connection to Jamie and Jamie's connection to me. So it's kind of a small world in college athletics. Similar to coaching, administration is very similar too. But yeah, so Knoxville to New Orleans back here, been full circle. Part of the reason why I wanted to come back this way is I've got a young family myself. So I've got 2 young sons. Lincoln is an unbelievable place to raise a family, and I'm 3 hours away from where my family lives in Des Moines. So it's been fun being back. I hope I don't leave for a very, very long time. We enjoy it here. And obviously, as my role continues to change and evolve, I'm excited about what the future has in store for us.
Yeah, we hope you don't leave for a long time either, because kind of you're our in guy. So if you leave, we have to recruit a whole new team, and that just takes forever.
Right, more checks.
Again, I got to get this wind tunnel figured out, so that's going to take.
It's been 7 years since the last bowl game. This year, I think that the state of Nebraska collectively has more hope than it's had in the last 7 years combined. How's the energy in the building? And are people saying, well, if they make a bowl game, then I'll give you money, kind of a thing? You know, are they doing a quid pro quo kind of a thing?
I think there's some cautious optimism to that. I think that folks want
I'm not cautious. I'm just optimistic. Let's go.
Hey, I'm pretty bullish about our position too. I mean, I've told you, this facility that we have is the finest facility in the country. I really believe deeply in our coaches. I think that we've got some pros that are really running it. I think our strength and conditioning program is run by a pro. I think we've seen some results there. But I think, Bob, the reality is the investment that everybody is putting into college athletics is significant. It's increased dramatically in the last 5 to 10, maybe even 15 years. So everybody is trying to win. The pressure to win is higher, I think, than it has ever been before. So, yeah, I think we've got to get some results. I think there are some people that are on the fence of whether they want to jump both feet in. Some people may have 1 foot in. I will tell you, I think that this is going to be a big year for us. I think the schedule allows for us to build some momentum in ways that we haven't been able to do in recent years. 400 games in a row is a significant advantage to me. I think that the environment, especially when you talk about us having some night games, the energy in Memorial Stadium on a night game is hard to beat. So I think it's going to be a tough place to play early on in the year, and then you can start stacking some momentum that way. Whereas no excuse on the previous seasons, but it's tough to go play at Minnesota and then turn around and go at Colorado when you got a Colorado team last year that had a lot of swag about them. They were really healthy early on. That's a tough environment to come into with the first-year coaching staff and a young team really on our offensive side. So, yeah, I'm bullish. I really do feel good about where we're going and what the opportunity will be this year.
Are you allowed to make individual game predictions?
I am not.
So the Bob and I did the prediction show with our sons, Drew, Frady, and George. And Bob turns out to be the heaviest Kool-Aid drinker, maybe standing in the wind tunnel as well at 11-1. And I came in at 10-2. My two losses were Ohio State and Southern Cal. Drew was Ohio State, Southern Cal, and Wisconsin. And George was the only one of us that put a loss on Colorado. But across the board, I mean, the worst case was 9-3. So from the perspective of the Sunday Morning Quarterback podcast, we're going to a bowl game.
The hyper-optimistic crazy fan, like, detached from reality, fully detached from reality.
I obviously don't control content. I don't control recruiting. I don't control really any of that. There is one thing that I think we all three on this podcast can control, and that's our attitude. So I appreciate the optimism. I think that matters. So I'm with you.
So, hey, listen, Tyler, how can people get involved if they're not involved with Nebraska athletics right now? How can they get involved? What's the best path?
Yeah, so we started this out talking about NIL, so I'll talk a little bit about NIL as well as the Huskers Athletic Fund. So our partnership with 1890 Nebraska has evolved. Middle of July, I think we made an official announcement. Really, the way that we view NIL is that it is a funding priority just as much as any of our capital projects, just as much as giving directly to the Huskers Athletic Fund. The best way to describe our role as it relates to 1890's role, they are here for recruitment and retention of student athletes. I am here for the development of our student athletes. We need both. We could have an unbelievable roster, but not have the ability to develop them, and that's not going to matter. We could have an unbelievable development program, but not be able to recruit top-tier athletes, and it also won't matter. So both are critical to grow. So that's why our investment in both areas is the way that it is. And really, just from an operation perspective, if you make a contribution to 1890 Nebraska, we will count those donations in your membership for the Huskers Athletic Fund. So if you're at $20,000 to us and $5,000 to them, you're a $25,000 donor. If you get $500 to them and $500 to us, you're a $1,000 donor. So we want people to really consider doing both. The easiest way to do that is 1890nebraska.com if you're interested in supporting NIL. And the other way is if you're interested in supporting the development of our student athletes and getting Huskers Athletic Fund is huskersathleticfund.com. You can make contributions, donations to both of those. We need it. It's really important. The investments in our athletics programs is really second to none, but we can't do that on our own. It requires a lot of people to help us. And the collective impact is important in those areas too, Bob.
So we always end with a Go Big Red, and Bob will lead us off. I'll go second, and you go third, okay?
Got to get in shape for this one. Ready? Go Big Red!
Go Big Red! Go Big Red!
Go Big Red!
That was like an Iowa guy just said that, Shiminy Christmas. Holy cow. That was like an Iowa State Go Big Red. Go Big Red. Come on, man. You got another one in you. Ready? Go Big Red!
Go Big Red!
There you go. That's better.
Better with more for that.
There you go.
Yeah.